Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. I just returned from a long trip back to Finland, my home country. And I think I may have made a huge embarrassing mistake with my travel gear setup. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. I think travel gear in general is a very interesting topic because most of us, we like to travel, and I think we all are constantly looking for that optimal travel gear setup. It should be enough to cover everything we want to shoot, but at the same time it should not be too big and heavy. And my setup on my latest trip certainly was big and heavy. I had about 10 kilograms of cameras and lenses all together with me, and that's quite a lot considering I don't have any one single piece of gear that would be big and heavy, like one super telephoto lens that weighs 4 kilograms, for example. Let me now share what I took with me, what cameras and lenses, and what was my most used camera and most used lens, and was it a mistake to take all those cameras and lenses with me? And by all means, share your thoughts on travel gear in the comments down below. I'd like to hear that because, like I said, it's an interesting topic, and I think it can also be beneficial to know what other photographers take when they travel. I had altogether 4 cameras with me. I had my full-frame Sony a7 Mark IV and my APS-C Sony a6700. And I took those Sony cameras because they both can do excellent photos and video. And they are also great for any possible lens testing, and indeed during my 6-month travel, I received some lenses for testing, and I also published videos about all those lenses on this channel. And then of course I had my Ricoh GR3X. It's a must. I never go anywhere without that camera. It's such a great, inconspicuous little camera, but at the same time it has so many great features and superb image quality. And whenever I want to be ready to take high quality pictures, but I don't want to carry a camera bag or anything big with me, I'll take the GR3X. It's a must. And then I had the Olympus XZ1. It's an old point and shoot camera, and the sole purpose for that camera was to make one CCD sensor video topic. And that I made, and it turned out to be quite a successful video on my channel. I did not take any Micro Four Thirds cameras because I thought 4 cameras is already enough. And if I have another system, I need more lenses also for that particular system. Also, I was going to Kuala Lumpur, and when I'm in Kuala Lumpur, I can always go to my friend Robin Wong and borrow some of his Micro Four Thirds cameras and lenses if I need or want to shoot on Micro Four Thirds. And then the lenses. I had altogether 4 Sony lenses with me. I had the 11mm f1.8 APS-C lens for my a6700, and that lens was strictly for video. I shot some photos on that lens too, but the initial purpose was only to use it for video. Then I had the 24mm f2.8, which is a great lens. It works both on my full-frame a7 Mark IV, and it also works great on the a6700 as a 36mm equivalent. Great for street photography. Then I had the 40mm f2.5 and the 50mm f2.5, and with these 2 lenses I had to ponder quite a while before I could decide which one, and after some pondering I decided to take both of them because they are so tiny, and I thought, okay, it doesn't really matter if I take both because they are so tiny and lightweight. And then I had the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8 APS-C lens, also for my a6700. I planned to use it for video, but it turns out I did not use that lens so much after all. It's a great little lens, but during this trip I just didn't use it that much. And then I had two Tamarons for my A7 Mark IV. I had the 28 to 75mm f2.8 G2, mainly for video, but also some product shots if I needed some stills or cover shots for my videos. And then I had the Super Telephoto zoom lens, 50 to 400mm f4.5 6.3, and that lens I wanted to have because I usually never travel with a telephoto lens, and this time I just wanted to have a telephoto lens with me, and it turns out this Tamron 50 to 400 is really an excellent lens. It's not big for what it is, but in absolute terms it is quite a big and heavy lens, and by far the biggest single piece of equipment I had. And then I had two Viltrox lenses. The full frame 20mm f2.8, which also works great on my A6700 as a 30mm equivalent, which is absolutely fantastic for street photography. And then Viltrox sent me another lens for a review after I had already been traveling for a couple of weeks. And that lens is the 27mm f1.2, which is a fantastic APS-C lens. But it turns out I did not use that lens so much because it's quite big and heavy, even though it's a fantastic optically. But it's just a little bit too big and heavy for my taste and for my street photography. So altogether I had 4 cameras and 9 lenses, including that 27mm Viltrox. And I know some of you are going to say that it's way too much, and I can understand your point. But you have to also understand that because I'm not strictly a photographer, I'm also a videographer because of this channel. I want to be able to deliver high quality, versatile, diverse content to you guys. And that's why I need a little bit more gear with me compared to some of you who are probably maybe only photographers. But let me now tell you what was my most used camera, my most fun camera, my most used lens, and what was my most fun lens during this trip. And then I will let you know if it was an embarrassing mistake to carry all these cameras and lenses halfway around the world for 6 months. My most used camera was, are you ready for this? It was the Sony A7 Mark IV. Mainly because I used it for a few low-light time lapses, and I like to use it for any kind of low-light photography because it's by far the best low-light performer of all my cameras. I also used it for some lens testing and so on, but if I count the frames, it was my most used camera. My second most used camera was the Sony A6700. Also because I did some lens reviews, lens testing on that camera, but it also turned out to be a fantastic little camera for street photography. My third most used camera was the GR3X, but not because it's not up to those two Sony cameras. It's just that I can't use it for lens testing, obviously, and while the GR3X is quite a decent camera for time lapses, I still prefer the A7 IV because of its better low-light performance, and also I can put any lens I want on the A7 Mark IV. But my most fun camera was the Sony A6700 and the Ricoh GR3X. I can't really decide which one was more fun, but I have to say that the A6700 was a really super positive surprise. It was such a fun little camera to use for the type of street photography that I like to do. My most used lens was the Sony 24mm f2.8 if I count the frames. And that is partly because I shot my time-lapses, most of my time-lapses on that lens mounted on the Sony a7 Mark IV. But that little lens also turned out to be a fantastic street lens when mounted on the Sony a6700. On that camera it equals to about 36mm full-frame lens, which is great for street photography. I also like the aperture ring, which allows me to see what my aperture is without turning on the camera. Great little lens. My second most used lens, and this was a big surprise to me, was the Tamron 50-400mm lens. And I didn't even take that lens out so many times because it's quite big and heavy. I mostly shot from my apartment in Kuala Lumpur, in Bangkok and in Melbourne because I happened to have quite a nice view from each of those apartments. But still, that is my second most used lens, and it was definitely worth it to carry that relatively big and heavy lens with me all the time because I got some really nice shots that I really like. My third most used lens, which was also a small surprise, was the Viltrox 20mm f2.8. But I didn't use it much on my full-frame Sony. I used it mostly on my Sony a6700 APS-C camera, on which it equals to about 30mm, which is fantastic for street photography. It's such a nice little super compact lens, very affordable, and it performs superbly both on full frame and APS-C. Definitely a nice travel lens because of its tiny size and lightweight. My most fun lens was the Ricoh GR3X lens, which equals roughly to about 40mm on full frame terms. And my second most fun lens was the Sony 24mm and the Viltrox 20mm. I can't quite decide which one was more fun, but both of those lenses mounted on my a6700 APS-C camera body were super a lot of fun and both excellent for street photography. And I would highly recommend those two lenses even if you don't own a full-frame camera body. Now, was it a big, huge, embarrassing mistake to take so many cameras and lenses with me for 6 months and halfway across the world? Well, I don't think it was a big, huge mistake, but next time I'm going to try to take a little bit fewer lenses at least. Because there were a couple of lenses that saw very little use. The other one was the Sigma 18-50 f2.8. It's a fantastic little zoom lens, but I did not use it much. And another zoom lens that I didn't use that much was the Tamron 28-75 f2.8. Also a fantastic lens, and it was very useful for video, but still, considering the size of the lens compared to some primes, it may not be worth it on my next trip. However, it's also going to be a little bit more complicated next time because I'm going to add 2 more systems to my fleet. I want to be able to explore other systems and see what is happening, properly see what is happening outside of Sony ecosystem. I'm not going to tell you yet what systems I'm going to add, but by all means have a guess in the comments down below, and also don't forget to leave your thoughts on travel gear. I hope this travel gear pondering was useful, and if it was useful to you, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that if you don't live in Finland. And I'll see you soon in the next one.